Hi, I'm Amber Hurdle with Amber Hurdle Consulting, and today we are going to explore the topic of your shadow self, and how that might impact your leadership. Um, what you can proactively do to integrate your shadow into your personality, and frankly, to see if you're willing to be that brave. If you like to pretend that you're perfect and you have no interest in exploring your dark side, then this might not be the video for you. You might want to stop this one and then go check out another one. I'm sure I've got some linked in the description. But if you want to fully embrace your authentic self, if you want to be a self aware leader, then I guess I invite you to the dark side. So let's go. All right. So, background, what is the shadow self? Well, first we have to talk about the person who brought this concept to the table. So, Carl Jung. If you're at all familiar with psychology or his work as a psychoanalyst, then you know Carl Jung. He's done a lot with like archetypes and that sort of thing. And he is the one who did the pivotal work around the shadow aspect that is commonly acceptable today. So Freud had his version. Carl Jung was like, well, hold up, this is what I think. And this is kind of what stuck. So he's a Swiss psychiatrist, a Swiss psychoanalyst. I could go on and on. Look him up, Google him. It'll be great. What he says is that our shadow is the part that we deny of ourself. It's what the ego refuses. It's what the ego refuses as part of who we are. Okay, so I'm using all these kind of therapy words. It's basically like, I don't want to admit this about myself. That is what your shadow side is. That is the shadow side. So, the trick about your shadow side is usually when you repress it and you're like, oh no, that's not me at all. I'm not that way at all. We typically have a tendency to project that on other people. Like, I don't see it in me, but I can see it in everybody else because that's what's going on inside of me. And I can't ignore it because it's part of who I am. So, some examples might be like overzealous passion, being materialistic, being judgmental, being neurotic. We often joke about being OCD, but like there are some people that are inherently neurotic and they just refuse to see it in themselves, but they will try to see it in everybody else. So you get the idea. The dark thoughts, the moods that we get into that make us feel guilty or shameful, that's your shadow self. Okay, so check that. I think I want to read directly from Jung to kind of give just a little more background. I think it's important. I know you're used to me talking about like leadership and things like this, and we will pull this full circle, but I want you to really understand this concept. So Jung says, the confrontation, so when we're addressing our shadow self, the confrontation is the first test of courage on the inner way, a test sufficient to frighten off most people. For the meeting with ourselves belongs to more the unpleasant things that can be avoided so long as we project everything negative into the environment. Okay, so that's his official take. But if we are able to see our own shadow and bear knowing about it, then a small part of the problem has already been solved. We have at least brought up the personal unconscious. The shadow is a living part of the personality and therefore wants to live with it in some form. It cannot be argued out of existence or rationalized into harmlessness. This problem is exceedingly difficult because it not only challenges the whole man, but reminds him at the same time of his helplessness and his ineffectuality. Let's just let that sit for a second. Okay, Amber, you done swimming in that deep end that you like to hang out in? You said this was about my leadership, okay? First of all, the deep end is my favorite. Go grab your floaties. Here we go. Let's talk about some examples. The work at hand here when we're talking about the shadow work is to first uncover what lies within our shadow side, and then we can integrate it into our consciousness. So instead of like putting it up on a shelf and ignoring that it exists, we actually want it to come out and play. right? So an example is when you don't do that, it comes out sideways. So my former therapist used to say, you can deal with it, you can go through it, or it's going to come out your ear. And that means like it's going to spontaneously appear. And that's when somebody says, "Oh, that was so out of character." No, girl, that's your shadow side, okay? Or boy. The way that we deal with it, we talked a little bit about projection, but that's one that I see a lot in leadership. So, in a work environment, instead of acknowledging, like, I'm neurotic, I need things to be done a certain way, or I'm bossy, it's got to be my way, instead of acknowledging that and finding the good in it, finding, like, wait, let's just be curious about this thing. What's going on here? Why am I being bossy? What is bossiness doing to serve me in this particular instance? Instead of saying, how do I integrate this aggressiveness, or how do I integrate this um, perfectionism? What is it that this is trying to do in order to serve me as a human being, or to serve what it is I'm trying to work on? Instead of doing that, we then say, oh, that's not me, that's you. And we project. And so just think about those relationships that you have, the people who report to you. Maybe it's a peer, maybe it's your boss, and you're projecting these things on them because you just won't own that that is in fact a part of you. How does that break relationship? How does that put you in situations that maybe make you look not in the best light? Uh, when we project, we are not only denying who we are, but we're also telling a lie to somebody else, because that person doesn't necessarily have that problem, right? And so now you're going to have somebody who feels the tension that you're having inside of yourself, and they're going to feel the tension between you and them. So that broken relationship, you're not going to get the productivity out of them. You're not going to get discretionary effort out of them because you are unwilling to accept and work through your shadow self. So we're going to get to the how-tos. Right now, I just want to give a couple of examples. Now, you can Google this, you can look this up. There's so much more to this, but these are the two areas, projection and wearing a mask, that I see happen time and time again in corporate America and small business and whatever. So projection, we know you try to put it on somebody else. This isn't my bag. This is your bag. I'm not wearing this. I see you wearing this, even though that person's probably not wearing it. The other thing we do is we put on our mask. We vehemently deny that that is part of who we are. And so we just go around acting like, Paul Perfect or Patsy Perfect all the time. And we live in this unreal world of perfectionism, of hiding our authentic truth. Now, I'm not saying you roll up and you're like, hey, I'm going to just show up exactly how I want to show up today. There are definitely social norms and things like that that we have to take in consideration, the culture of the organization and whatnot. But when we wear a mask and we're walking around life intentionally hiding these things, it creates cognitive dissidence. Now, that's another big therapy word, right? You're like, oh, Amber, we're like way deep into psychology. Um, Cognitive dissidence is a conflict between who you think you are and who you actually are. And that's really a first class ticket on the struggle bus, okay? I'm pretty sure most of us have experienced that at some point of our life. I'm pretty sure that is what midlife crises are all about. And it's when the shiz gets real. So, when we have this disconnect between who we think we are and who we actually are, and we have to deal with that discomfort, again, it damages relationships, because if you can't be honest with yourself and you've got this mask on for everybody else, like, how's that working out for you? It's not. I can just go ahead and give you the quick answer to the end of that story. It can lead to addictive behaviors when you're wearing a mask all the time. You're trying to be perfect and you're being like so about like, this is who I am, and this is what I want everybody to believe about me. Those addictive behaviors come out. Three cheers to all the workaholics out there, right? Maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's sex, maybe it's all kinds of different things, but there are addictive behaviors that we dance into gleefully when we're trying to hide who we really are, instead of just saying, what's this thing that keeps bubbling up with me? What is this thing? How is this serving me? how can I integrate this into my ego so that I can understand how to serve humanity, how to serve my family, how to serve my employees and the people that I work with. This is bringing value to the table if I will allow it to sit in the light, if I don't shove it into the shadow side of things, if I don't repress it, if I bring it out and say, okay, I'm going to put this with all this cool stuff that I've got, I'm going to merge them together, and this is really who I am. Okay. So, what can you do? What can you do? If you're really willing to be dangerous and come over to the dark side with me, then there are some things that you can do to help move through the shadow process. The first thing that I would recommend, and again, I am not a therapist, so and we will get to that point in the to-do list. But the very first thing I think that is important is to quiet your mind. It is no secret that I'm a huge fan of meditation. I have the most monkey mind meditations out there. I am constantly forgiving myself for my thoughts wandering around and bringing it back to my breath. Like that is my go-to. I am no monk. This is not my forte, but I do it because it's the only time that I get to quiet my brain. And that might mean listening to music for you. It might mean yoga for you. Whatever that is that thing that you do that helps focus your brain and not be thinking all the time, and at least trying to um, empty it and let things fall out of it. When you're in that quiet spot with yourself, when you're able to be honest with yourself, that is when you can start saying, this little thing that I keep trying to shove away and say, no, 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 that's not me. Maybe that is me. And so having that quietness, I think, is pretty important. Another thing that I love to do, I have really deep conversations with myself pretty much every day. And that's journaling. And so if you're not a big journaler, if you're not a wordsmith, I mean, granted, that's been a huge part of my career, communication and writing. You can just bullet point kind of how you're feeling. You can bullet point different ideas. You can take your phone and you can open up the notes and you can dictate it, or you could dictate into your voice notes and it just be a voice journal. You could go back and listen to it and sit with these ideas and these concepts. And if you think this is woo woo, or if you think that you're too man for this, let me tell you what, you are not. This is a critical piece of your success as a leader. It's a critical piece of your self-awareness. And a self-aware leader is an exceptional leader, because only when we are self-aware can we see and harvest the greatness in others. So if you think you're some kind of a great leader and you are not doing inner work like this, you might want to call me. Um, so I have to say that when I work with senior leaders, it's this kind of stuff. They've done the things. They've got the degrees, they've got the certifications, they have the resume. They've got all the things. All that's left at that point in order to lead an extraordinary organization is to find the gap between where they are and where they can be. And oftentimes that is in the shadow. That is in the shadow self. So there is no one who is too evolved to address this. And when I'm working with high potentials and they're on the trajectory to go to senior leadership, I love diving in here. When people say, oh, no, I mean, I know it's this way, but I don't want to be that way. And so I'm not going to be that way. I'm like, let's talk about this real quick, because that sounds like it's your shadow. Now, again, I'm not a therapist, but I will have conversations around what is it that I'm denying of myself. And so I want you to meditate or journal. I want you to find a licensed clinical social worker, a psychologist, a psychiatrist. There's no shame in that, y'all. I went for 8 years. Okay. How do you think I'm so into this stuff? How do I know how to identify these things? Because you don't get to be a teen mom and deal with abuse and do the things that I did in life and not have somebody to partner with as you walk through that. And, at the recording of this, we're in the midst of states opening up with just the economy throughout this coronavirus crisis that we're in. There's a lot of anxiety. And actually, right now, a lot of companies are completely covering the cost of mental health. And so this would be a really good time for you to take advantage of a therapist. And I can personally shoot me an email, or shoot the team an email, info@amberhurdle.com, and we will put you in touch with therapists that we absolutely love and adore and would recommend all day long, who can cancel you remotely. So again, once you decide, okay, I'm going to be quiet, I'm going to find the shadow aspect of me, then maybe journaling about it or doing a voice recording is a way for you to try to process through your own ideas. And then once you can articulate those things, I think the next step is to find a therapist. Now, can you talk about some of these things in passing with a coach like me? Absolutely. But a coach does not have the same skill set, and the same tools that a therapist will. We do two different things. So actually working with a coach and also a therapist is like super magical, and something that many of my clients have experienced. And I'm very appreciative of having that trust in me and being able to have a great relationship, as a support team for walking alongside somebody as they are aspiring to their highest and best self. And really, isn't that what it's all about? Like, why are we even here? What are you doing? What are you doing in your day? Like, just hanging out? Are you just chilling, like lint on a couch? Or are you here to do something? Are you watching this video because you don't care about your future? You don't care about your impact in the world? Or are you ready to dig in and say, okay, yeah, this is my light. This is how I shine. This is my personal brand. And I will link to my last personal brands or BS, which, I don't really mean that, but I just wanted you to go a little bit deeper about your soul's purpose and that sort of thing. But if you're going to go that far, if you're going to celebrate your light, then what if you took a moment to deal with your darkness as well? And then a step further, what if you could integrate that shadow into your ego self, into what you acknowledge is in fact a part of you? Then what? Then what kind of power would you have? What kind of authority would you have? What kind of influence would you have? And how more authentic can you show up and then give everyone else permission to do the same? Okay, I think I stretched it about as far as I could this week. I know that was a little bit deeper. Um, that's kind of where I like hanging out right now. And I think it's where a lot of people need to be hanging out right now. And if they don't feel it, I think they will as we move through all of the wonkiness that's going on in the world right now. So be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Please leave a comment. I would love to know what you thought about this kind of different, crazy side of leadership, because what leadership is all like fun and games and rah rah and good to great and all these cliche corporate terms, but there's also the humanity of it, because it is people leading people, and this is a key aspect of that. um, I will definitely put in the description a way for you to interact with me, to work with me. My scheduling link, I am opening up more coaching spots, and I'm loving coaching right now. I'm coming off the road and not having the opportunity to speak as much, and being able to sit with people and walk alongside them on their journey as they are tackling really profound things right now, as we're all sheltering in place and stuck at home with our thoughts and our feelings and our dreams and our aspirations. And getting to be a part of that is just so beautiful. I love it. So be sure to hit me up if that's something that is right for you in this season of your life. And other than that, I will see you next week.